How many times have you been told to set up two-factor authentication? It's going to protect you from hackers. It could be a website that's got some important credentials. Your personal banking might have it. It could be your Instagram account. Maybe it's your Discord server. That added layer of protection is a nice thing to have. After all, if you've got 2FA on your phone, then you've got your codes on you at all times, so a hacker could never get them, right? Well, even if it's unlikely, there are still ways around this. One of them is called SIM swapping, and it's been the cause of many a problem ranging from banking fraud to crypto theft, and even just abuse of reputation and personal accounts. I'm John Cordes, and today I'm inviting you to come with me as we take apart our own mobile devices and get to the root of what the shell SIM swapping is and how it can have an impact that could range from tweeting out something unfortunate all the way up to a multi-million-dollar legal issue. Before we get started, I've got a fun bit of news for you all. I'm going to put the shiny object up front. There's free stuff incoming. It's been a couple continuous episodes back now, and I'm loving the energy from the community. To help grow our little slice of the internet, and at the same time give back to you all, I'm launching the first giveaway of the year. Some of you might have seen the video already up on the podcast YouTube account. There will be 5 winners and a couple of tiers of prizes and ways to engage. I'll start with those shiny objects. The prizes range from Amazon gift cards to show merch and Patreon subs. So how do you enter? Well, there are multiple ways for you to earn an entry into this little raffle. Each item I'm about to talk you through carries a couple different point values, so to speak. Each point is one entry in the raffle for this. The raffle is going to be at the end of March, so we'll have time for you to get your entry in. Everything that involves a link or registering will have an appropriate link in the podcast episode description or on the website, whattheshellpod.com. For 3 points, you can join the podcast Discord. For 2 points, you have a couple of options that will reward 2 points each. You could follow the podcast Twitch channel at whattheshellpod. Follow and rate the show on Spotify. Share your favorite episode online and tag the show in the post. And for 1 point each, you could follow the show on Instagram at shell_pod, on Blue Sky at shellpod, one word, or on YouTube at whattheshellpod. When you've done these and then send me proof to either my Discord or whatever platform it's on, that will be 1 raffle slot per point. Like I said, at the end of March, I'll be pulling these, and you've got plenty of options to score quite a little bit of prizes. All 5 of the winners are going to receive a What the Shell Show poker chip. It's a new thing that I'm doing mainly for in-person promotions, but I wanted to share with some of you. 2 stickers for the show, one of a main logo, and one of a Doing My Heckin' Best sticker. Each of them is a 3x3 and perfect for your laptop. A 1-month Patreon user access subscription. 3 out of the 5 selected winners will receive all of those prizes that I just talked about and a What the Shell t-shirt. And 1 of the 5 will receive everything that I've said so far. So that's the poker chip, the stickers, the t-shirt, plus a $25 Amazon gift card and a 1-month Root Access membership on the Patreon. That's the tier that comes with a 10-minute mini episode of your choice for Patreon users. Alright, I think that's enough of a self-promo till the end of the episode. I hope you'll participate. I just like to be able to give back to you. So back to SIM swapping. Let's start with the absolute basics, alright? You've got your cell phone. Well, every cell phone has what's called a SIM card attached to it. That stands for Subscriber Identity Module. It's basically your ticket to a mobile carrier network for your phone. But what does it do? In the most basic sense and capabilities, it stores your phone number, stores your network plan, includes that available data, voice minutes, text message policies. It identifies your device, it authenticates you to the network, and in some cases, it does allow you to use your phone when traveling internationally. There are a couple types of SIM cards. Physical SIM cards, those are the removable SIM cards that tend to come in mini, micro, and nano sizes. And then there's eSIM cards. That's embedded SIM cards in your phone, and they can't just be removed. So when you have your phone, it will use a compatible SIM card for your carrier And then when you turn on your phone, it reads data from a SIM card, sends it to the network. The network is then going to verify your identity and determines if you have access to participate. If someone were to say remove or disable it, everything else on the phone is going to stay the same, but you won't be able to make calls or connect to the internet. At least not through cellular data. That's all to say that this is also how you tune a lot of your personal security controls to your phone, because how many times have you selected two-factor authentication method by way of text message in particular? The text message that's sent to your device over the carrier data plan. If you take that a step back, hypothetically, if you control that SIM card for a phone number, you have a way in from that two-factor setting when a text message gets sent to the device that the SIM card is registered to. But there's a lot that goes into that, right? How does it work from the beginning? Well, it harkens back to something we've talked about quite a bit throughout the show. It starts with social engineering. That's just hacking the human. No code, no exploits, just vulnerable people. To illustrate this, instead of explaining it all step by step to you, I want to share a clip from Oracle Mind, who went to DEF CON a few years ago and asked someone from a social engineering village to hack their mobile carrier. Listen to this, because it's one of my favorite clips from DEF CON videos and interviews, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So here's the clip now.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DEF CON, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and
Okay.
see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right, thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yeah.
You might have noticed that she used a tactic called phishing. Phishing is one of the methods that you could use to call in and try to engage in a SIM swap tactic. She didn't inherently perform a SIM swap tactic in that video, but that could have been the first step in performing one of these attacks in real life. So yeah, her whole gimmick here was to instill an immediate stress of babies crying and major life choices being blocked by this issue. That put the mobile carrier rep at a starting point where they knew this call was going to be stressful. Even though none of it was real, the acting in tandem with just enough confidence and information to look legitimate got her to the point where within 5 minutes, she owned his mobile account. And that's where SIM swapping comes in, because now if she owns the account or has convinced the carrier that she's a valid customer, she can say she's got a new SIM card and request that the number be transferred over to it. If he wasn't in the room and she had just decided to do this, the first clue that something would be wrong might have just been that suddenly he'd have lost the ability to make phone calls or send text messages. It might appear that his phone would only have worked if it was on a wireless network. And if he was sending text messages on an iPhone, all his texts might only appear as though it was coming from his Apple ID instead of a phone number that he had previously attached to it. So at this point, I want to make it clear that I am doing a little bit of an assumed breach as well, because this isn't the only piece that's involved in hacking accounts with a SIM swap. For example, you might still need access to the applications and the accounts, right? Well, how many times have I talked about open source intelligence and the general data about you that's available? Let's start with breaches. We know there are constant issues of security in things like IoT applications, third-party software, things that you'll generally have to create an account for, and then the next time you hear about them is from an alert that they were compromised and your data is at risk. Well, that's just one of the avenues that an attacker might be able to get your password from, to add a piece to that overall puzzle. I mean, after all, no one reuses a password, right? The other piece might depend on how public you make yourself, because another security measure you may need to take into consideration is a set of security questions. We live in an age now where most people are growing up with the internet, and a large amount of people have spent more than half their lives with access to the internet, and have been putting information out there for equally as long. So I went to do some digging and found that Beyond Trust published a list of the 10 most common security questions asked when creating accounts. Do you want to take a minute to think about what some of them are? I'm sure you can think of a couple of them, but if you want to, try to think of as many as you can right now. Pause it, and then come back and maybe let me know how many of the 10 that you got. Alright, here are the 10 most common security questions that you will be asked when creating accounts. In what city were you born? What is the name of your favorite pet? What is your mother's maiden name? What high school did you attend? What is the name of your elementary school? What is the make of your first car? What was your favorite food as a child? Where did you meet your spouse? What year was your father or mother born? What was the name of a street you grew up on? Think about how many photos, how many accounts, and even how many people close to you might be able to aid in supplying that information to an attacker. It's incredibly easy to get the bulk of this information without ever talking to someone. Think about the last time your parents, or maybe even you, participated in one of those share this post and calculate your ninja name based on so-and-so. And it's really just an amalgamation of these questions. So what can you do? Well, it might be annoying, but you can be vigilant, and you can set your own security questions if you really want to. Then set them to something that's a little bit outside of the norm. As long as you're paying attention and being controlled with the questions and answers that you give, this can be managed. Because if it's not managed, all of this adds up to one total problem. Your phone, your account, your security questions, they can all give someone an immense amount of control over your privacy, financials, and more. So what are some of the consequences of being SIM swapped? Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Let's start a little bit down to earth with someone maybe a little bit like you or me. I want to take you to just outside Washington, D.C. in Maryland, where one woman named Sharon Hussey out of Bethesda lost $17,000. It's all thanks to the culmination of what we were just talking about. I'm going to let you listen in to a news story that started talking about this with Sharon herself and describe how it happened and how she felt through this.
We all know criminals have multiple ways to steal your identity, but 7 News is sending out a warning. SIM card swapping almost cost Sharon Hussey of Bethesda, Maryland, $17,000.
It was absolutely stunning. It was just like my heart fell to the floor.
It all started when Hussey got this email thanking her for a purchase of a new phone at Verizon. Minutes later, her contact information at Bank of America changed. The problem? She didn't do either transaction and had two-factor authentication on her accounts.
The bottom just kind of dropped out.
She called Bank of America, but her cell phone was no longer active. An online attempt required a verification code her phone couldn't receive. Within minutes, her 17 grand was missing.
Initially, I didn't realize how big of a deal it was. I thought I had handled it on the first day by calling the bank, calling Verizon, figuring things out.
Hussey tells 7 News Verizon said someone in California walked into one of its stores and purchased a new phone along with a new SIM card and used Hussey's current phone number to activate the new phone. When the new phone was turned on, Hussey's phone went dead. Hussey used a landline to contact Bank of America, but it was too late. 17 grand vanished.
And I have two-factor authentication, which ended up kind of biting me in the face when it all came down to it. That was the thing that completely hijacked everything. They had complete control of my phone, and there was nothing I could do about it.
So what you can see here is that it's kind of indiscriminate. In the grand scheme of hacks and compromises that we've talked about so far, $17,000 is not a lot of money when we're talking about things on the scale of millions of dollars, like we will be soon. It doesn't have to be over a phone either. Someone could literally walk into a store and do what happened to Sharon. I want to start with some bigwigs. Maybe the CEO of Twitter. No, not Elon Musk. We're talking about Twitter, not X. So we're going to go back to 2019 and look at Jack Dorsey. His Twitter handle is a simple @Jack. Imagine this. It's a regular Friday afternoon in August of 2019. There hasn't been a global pandemic yet. You're enjoying your life. Maybe you have a nice summer day out there. You might follow some of the big tech giants to keep tabs on what's going on in that space, and suddenly, Jack Dorsey's Twitter account starts spewing out a series of offensive and bizarre tweets. Not only you, but the whole world he helped cultivate on Twitter watches in shock, as the account of one of the most influential figures in tech just starts spewing nonsense. I've got some pictures of some of the more tame tweets on the website in the episode transcript. You can find those at whattheshellpod.com. And even in doing this, I had to take some of the information from various news articles like CNET now, because the tweets and even legitimate response tweets seem to maybe have gotten lost in the transition to X. But over the next few hours, you would see things like, quote, "Yes, Jack's account was compromised. We're working on it and investigating what happened." That was said by Brandon Borman, the head of Twitter comms, around 1 o'clock Pacific time that day. Then a little over an hour later, Twitter's comms account announced that Dorsey's account had just been secured. According to Twitter comms, the phone number associated with the account was compromised due to a security oversight by the mobile provider. This allowed an unauthorized person to compose and send tweets via text message from the phone number. That issue is now resolved. That's a short and legal way of describing what we've been talking about. Someone convinced a mobile carrier that was used to own the account that they were the owner of that phone number. Thanks to a feature of a platform, that person took over the number and was able to send tweets via text message. The attackers, as we would find later, were a group calling themselves the Chuckling Squad. That feature that they exploited was a feature called Cloud Hopper, which allows users to tweet via text message. So by linking Dorsey's phone number to their own device, they were able to text and send out tweets as if they were him. How do we know it was the Chuckling Squad? Well, it was pretty telling that Jack tweeted a link to their Discord while he was compromised. Let's keep with that Chuckling Squad, because Jack isn't the only one that they managed to get here. Ever heard of James Charles? Honestly, if you're like me, then probably not, but James Charles is a popular social media influencer, and also a victim of that squad. The squad had been very active around this time. I'm not going to be sharing any of the tweets here this time, because those tweets were much more colorful and full of slurs. It had a slew of ramifications for James, including even losing his account's verified status. That one was because the hackers had changed the account name multiple times. And as tweets from compromised accounts like Jack and James continued to flood Twitter, the organization quickly sprang into action. They tried to regain control and launch an investigation. The incident kind of underscored the importance of robust security practices, not just for individuals, but companies as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about the organizations and companies. It also brought to light the need for better authentication methods beyond SMS-based two-factor authentication, which can easily be bypassed for SIM swapping. The fallout from this attack was significant. It prompted many to kind of rethink their security strategies and adopt more secure methods of protecting their accounts. But at this point, all we've really talked about is more of a reputational risk. What is the next level up? Let's talk about some fiscal implications. Do you know who Michael Turpin is? Well, he was a bit of a crypto entrepreneur, and a young man in Florida by the name of Nicholas Truglia decided that he was going to exploit Turpin's crypto finesse for his own gain. In the manner that we've been talking about so far, Truglia took over the account number that was registered to Turpin's cell phone. According to The Record, a recorded future news platform, the group that Truglia was a part of stole roughly 3 million tokens across various cryptocurrencies once they got into his Binance account. That would end up being worth about $23.8 million US dollars. According to the criminal indictment, the tokens ended up in Truglia's account and were converted to Bitcoin, with the proceeds shared among the participants that helped arrange all this. This wasn't the first or only time Truglia had been involved in a scam like this, though. It seems like crypto was his baby because in 2018 he was arrested and extradited to California. This time it was for $1 million that he stole from a man in San Francisco. Later, according to the Southern District of New York's attorney's office, Truglia was ordered to pay Turpin more than $20 million in restitution within 60 days of the judgment. I do hope he kept some of that crypto on standby for us and that maybe it had retained enough money to pay this out. But he was just a small part of a group that was performing these kinds of exploits. The ringleader, named Ellis Pinksy, was also charged, even though at the time of the hack he was only 15 years old. At the point he was charged, he was an adult, and he was ordered to pay $75 million in damages given the variations of losses and gains his crypto investments would have seen at that time. Turpin, who it didn't seem was very happy here, would continue to try and get as much as he could out of the situation, going as far as trying to sue AT&T over letting this happen. Admittedly, I'd probably be mad at my carrier too, if someone on their team let this happen, but as we've seen, sometimes it can be really difficult to tell what's actually going on. Remember that audio clip that I showed you earlier on in the episode? Ultimately, a judge in California threw out the $200 million damages claim he'd filed, but he let the remaining parts of the open case proceed as planned. All in all, I don't know if Turpin was happy with how things ended, but at least he was being treated seriously and at least he was ordered to be paid some level of restitution. And let's bring it back to that guy from San Francisco that had lost $1 million back in 2018. His name was Robert Ross, and he was also a victim, like we said, of a SIM attack. If you read articles, you can see that Robert said, quote, "I was at my home desk and I noticed a notification on my iPhone for a withdrawal request from one of my financial institutions, and I thought, that's weird. I didn't make a withdrawal request. Then I looked back at my phone and I saw that I had no service." Remember what I said earlier, what some of the early identifiers might be to if you were a victim of a SIM swap. You might not have service. So it's possible that he saw this email or this alert from his institution from a connection that wasn't necessarily over the cellular network, but over a wireless network at his house. Ross would later take this experience and found a website for advocacy called stopsimcrime.org. I'm honestly not too sure about where that status is right now, because if you go to stopsimcrime.org, it's currently giving me a 404 page. So maybe I'll do a little bit more research coming into the end of the episode, and if I can find anything, I'll tack it on at the very end. The last two hacks I want to talk about involving SIM swapping come in the form of exploiting public trust a little bit. I'm going to talk about Vitalik Buterin, the co-founder of Ethereum, first. In September of 2023, his account was taken over by swappers that started to post NFT giveaway prompts. They promised users that if they clicked on this link, they'd be entered to win, and eventually enough users clicked this malicious link that led to a site that would compromise their account, and they made away with nearly $700,000. Vitalik's carrier, T-Mobile, had been fooled into transferring ownership of his account to the scam artist, who then exploited the fact that at the time, a phone number could be enough to reset a Twitter password. Upon the reset of a password, for a short while, the account was theirs to spread the fake links. And if you're not really a crypto follower on this, Ethereum is a highly trusted name in the market. Honestly, if the legitimate account of an Ethereum co-founder was tweeting out something about an early opportunity, I think plenty of people would stop to listen. It's an abuse of a carefully constructed reputation. The last example I want to talk about today is a bit of a shorter one, but was still kind of surprising to me. I want you to think about government agencies, corporations, everyone that might need a social media presence that's not necessarily in the form of a person. Odds are, someone still posts from a mobile device, even if it's for an account tied to a three-letter agency. Somewhere, a phone number was tied to that account. So what happens when a hacker finds a phone number that's tied to the SEC Twitter account? That's the account for the Securities and Exchange Commission, by the way. Well, they SIM swap the phone number over to their own device, reset the Twitter password just like before, and attackers were then able to send posts from the compromised SEC Twitter account. This time, the attackers chose to announce the SEC's approval of spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds and interact with two posts from non-SEC accounts. Over the course of a day that this happened, Bitcoin's value would shoot up roughly $4,000 compared to the day before. On January 8th, 2024, the day before it happened, the Bitcoin low was $43,244. Compare that to the high of the next day on January 9th, in the middle of a hack, and it was $47,893. So you can see how it's kind of wavered the prices a bit. Things would end up settling a little bit in relation to the price. It wasn't too turbulent in the grand scheme. According to the SEC, the series of events that led to the hack went like this. They said, quote, while multi-factor authentication had previously been enabled on the @SEC.gov X account, it was disabled by X support at the staff's request in July of 2023 due to issues accessing the account. Once access was reestablished, MFA remained disabled until staff re-enabled it after the account was compromised on January 9th. MFA currently is enabled for all SEC social media accounts that offer it. So basically, it was annoying once, so they disabled 2FA. Then no one bothered to re-enable it. That meant that when the phone number associated with the account was popped, there was one less wall to climb to change the password. Suddenly, a government agency's account is just there to tweet whatever they want. So, what's the point? Well, I guess the point is that between the lack of a proper authentication control and some clever social engineering, even the most critical accounts are only a couple of hops away from being compromised. If you take anything away from this, it's that you should lose any kind of two-factor authentication by way of text messaging if possible. Anything that says, let me send you a code by text to help you authenticate is kind of vulnerable. Pivot over to an app like Google Authenticator or something akin to that. By taking away the text piece, you're not 100% eliminating that threat, but you're making it that much harder and buying yourself that much more time to realize that something's wrong. SIM swapping can affect anyone. I hope you'll remember that. Alright, I think that's it for the actual episode. I'm John Cordes, and thanks for listening to me explain what the shell SIM swapping is. and how it led to some rather crazy issues for us all to consider. Stay put though, because I've got one more little segment that I'm excited about. If you're in the podcast Discord, you've probably seen me talking to everyone about the fact that I'm starting to take user prompts and questions from the audience and doing something at the end. I've done something like this before in the past, and now I thought it was time to bring it back. So this one comes in from a user that wrote in via email. If you want to do that too, you can email me at shellpod@protonmail.com. Anyways, Brian C. reached out and asked, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and threats in the hacking community? I'm going to choose to answer this a little bit differently. Maybe not in the hacking community, but more broad scope for InfoSec and the cyber community. But I think it's a good question. And it's actually the kind of question that I like to ask in job interviews when I'm looking at people who might be joining my team or teams that I'm close to. I think one of the big problems we've got in the field is that it's an onslaught of information coming right at us day after day, hour after hour. Determining what's reliable and trustworthy can be hard. I often equate the news cycle and vulnerability monitoring to trying to punch the ocean. You're never going to full out win. It's just going to keep beating you back. So I have a couple of sites and tools that I use as starting points. One thing I'll say is that I'm not going to talk about any paid programs that are provided to me by my place of work. So this is more of my personal side of things. I've got a news bookmark folder in Chrome that I typically open every morning. I'm going to rapid fire through them. Then we can chat about it. For news sites, I use Krebs on Security, Bleeping Computer, and an RSS feed aggregator called the Cyberfeed. I'll have these links in the episode transcript as well, by the way. For communities, I try to participate in a few of them. Obviously, I'm in the Darknet Diaries Discord, I'm on my Discord. On YouTube and in the Discord, I'm a part of Gerald Auger's Simply Cyber community, and he has this great, lovely morning roundup I try to listen to whenever I'm working from home of all the cyber threat headlines that might be important right now. In fact, as I'm writing this, I'm actually watching one of them live. So definitely check him out too. There's a couple other options for communities that I like. For example, I like to be active on a couple subreddits that tend to have some good information. Those would be the cybersecurity subreddit, the Threat Intel subreddit, the Blue Team Sec subreddit, and the Red Team Sec subreddit. That all kind of adds up to one overall holistic view of cybersecurity from at least my need-to-knows. Between all of this, I feel like I have a decent view of what's going on. It all adds up to a continuous trusted feed that I rely on. Obviously, though, with stuff like Reddit, you need to vet your sources a little bit because user-submitted content can be iffy sometimes. Really, just do what's best for you. If you want to look at the CISA Known Exploited Vulnerabilities catalog every hour, I'm not going to stop you. If you want to look at Bleeping Computer only, you do you. The only thing I'll say is just be aware of getting easily overwhelmed. Information fatigue and paralysis is a real thing. I like that question a lot. If you want to ask one, then hit me up on Discord, Instagram, by email, however you want to try. I'd love to hear from you. Another thing, if you're interested, I'll be streaming again next week on February 27th. It'll be the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I think that first stream that I did last week went pretty well. And by this point, I've cut that stream into 2 separate videos that can be seen on YouTube, or you can watch the full VOD on Twitch still. If you want to hang out, you can join me and some of our fans in my show's Discord. The link to that and my socials are in the description of every episode. And before we go, here's a thanks to all the patrons who are helping me keep the show running. Thank you, and I apologize if any pronunciation is wrong again. Ben Sweetnam, Chris Finnick, RKA, FLD, VXUB, that's all one word, Rob McCurdy, Tyus Ashworth, Ben M, Pat H, Christian Odie, JS, Sudo, and Tank Profane. I truly appreciate all the contributions and the support of you guys for helping offset the cost of the show. If you want to help, you can go to patreon.com/whatmichelle. Maybe next episode, it'll be your name that I'm reading. I'll see anyone who's interested next week for the second stream. If not, I'll catch you in 2 weeks for the next episode. Music for What Michelle is sourced thanks to a combination of tracks provided by a performer named Stahl and content from Adobe Music Catalog, including tracks titled Live Another Day, Deterioration, and Augury. Production, including scripting, recording, editing, and publishing, and pretty much everything else, is done by me, John Cordes. Thanks for listening to What the Shell.